All right. I think we're live, and hopefully you can hear me. I think that's good. All right. So I don't have too much planned in terms of what I want to talk about. It. I just kind of felt called today to share some of these things that have really helped me in my own life. I woke up to more news today of more people in my local area of Seattle losing their jobs at Amazon. This is something that I've seen play out over a lot of different industries, and I think is definitely going to continue to impact more industries. Um, and my hope is that people don't feel as much fear. People feel like they have more options at their disposal. And this is not a push at anyone to start your own business. If you so feel called at doing that, awesome. More power to you. I'm happy to help any way I can. Um, I just want to share what's helped me. And I've learned a lot of good lessons from very, very smart people, much smarter than myself. And my hope is to just share some of this stuff and hope that, wherever you're at in your journey, that you find some benefit in this. Um, I can remember this all started for me when I saw a random YouTube video of some guy with no followers. It was one of his first videos, and he got out this book, actually, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek, and was talking about how the philosophies in this book changed his life. And so, classic me, just went down a rabbit hole, got the book sight unseen, and it completely changed my life. So my hope is that I can share something here that maybe just impacts one person. So the title of this talk is What Builds Wealth? Uh, I'll tell you the biggest secret. Wealth is not just about money. Yes, money does help with wealth, but there's a lot more to it than that. I'm a big believer that time is wealth, freedom is wealth, relationships is wealth, health is wealth. So many different things can go into what true wealth looks like. And that's really what I want to get into today. So, most of the times when you think of wealth, like I like to talk about tax strategy. If you watch any of my videos, they're probably talking about taxes, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today. Nor am I going to talk about passive income, which a lot of people use to build wealth. I think there's a lot of benefits to that. I think there's a lot of drawbacks to that too, but that's not what I'm going to talk about either. And I'm also not going to talk about why you should have a high paying job. Going back to my first example, if we've seen anything in the marketplace today, we should know that having a high paying job may be here today, but it's not necessarily there tomorrow. So now is kind of the time, in my opinion, to take agency over your own life and set yourself up. So the three biggest skills that I'm encouraging in this video are: number one, be consistent. Like relentless consistency will set you apart from 99% of the other people who you're going up against. And the coolest part is that you'll realize you're not actually going up against anyone at the end of the day. You'll realize that we're all in it together, and being consistent is going to allow you to become even better. The second part I want to talk about is believing and investing in yourself. So it starts with a strong sense of self-belief. I know this is something that I really struggled with originally. I was very lucky to have a very amazing partner who helped me kind of see some of this potential in me and slowly start to build that up. Taking that belief and coupling that with putting actual time and energy and money into myself really helped me. And so I cannot expound on that enough, how much believing and investing in yourself can really make a benefit in your life. The last thing I'll get into is unleashing your why. So I really think that one of the most powerful things in the world is understanding what makes you uniquely you. If you can bring that to the world, and everyone does that, I really think that amazing things can happen. So those are kind of the main themes of what I'm going to talk about. Before we get into all this stuff in the bottom, I do want to go over, why should you do this? Like, what's the benefit behind that? In my opinion, there's just no risk to doing this. Like, you could watch this video, sure, you might lose some time, but you can always go back to your old life. If you try this out for a little bit and you don't like it, hey, at least you tried. There's really nothing that I'm going to share that's going to cause you to completely change your life. You don't have to go to a monastery, you don't have to quit your job, you don't have to break up with your partner, you don't have to shave your head, even though sometimes you might want to. You can just do maybe some of these things if they hit home with you. And I just think now is a great time to bet on yourself. So let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to kind of talk about is this reset protocol, because I think that's what really helps. And a lot of this information in this section is from this guy, Paul Chek. If you're not sure who he is, I'd highly recommend you to check him out on YouTube. He has a ton of great free content for people, literally been putting out consistent videos for years and years and years. And he is the perfect example of what happens, when you go back up here, are consistent, you believe in yourself, and you unleash your why. And so a lot of these ideas I'm going to share from him. So the reset protocol. First things first, fix your sleep schedule. Try to get quality routine sleep. That will change your life in profound ways. It's amazing how much of a different person I am now compared to when I was working at my last CPA firm and was working crazy hours, was up late at night, drinking cups of coffee late at night to get work done during tax season. And there just was not much left of me because I wasn't sleeping. So starting with that is huge. The second thing is you want to eat to fuel your own body for whatever that might look like for you. I'm a big fan of organic, of clean, whole, natural foods, especially good, healthy, clean water like spring water. If you know me, I love my spring water, but it's really important to eat things that actually make you feel good, and not drown that out with taking a pill. Oh, I'm going to go eat crap and then take some pill to make me feel better. That might not be a good way to do it. Maybe there's an intelligence to the food we're eating and it might be telling you something. So definitely fixing your sleep, eating your food are two great places to start. And the third one is move your body. Maybe just go for a walk, do some light stretching, just do something that feels good. If you have kids, maybe get on the floor, play with your kids, do something to get your body in this state where it feels like your body again and you feel a bit more connected. It's amazing how simple those three things sound, but how much we take them for granted, especially when you're tied to your desk and you're just completely locked in on whatever you're doing. So would highly recommend that. Last stage in the reset protocol has to do with getting honest. So, what does getting honest actually look like? I know in the past I had a terribly tough time being honest with people because I wanted people to like me and I wanted to, come off as someone who's really smart and caring and all these things because I just wanted to be loved. And, there's some great things to that and some shadow sides to that too. But looking yourself in the mirror and getting honest is a great place to start with that reset protocol. And for me, what helped me was, I wasn't able to really understand what my dream life would be. I think that was a little too intimidating for me at first. So after watching some of Paul's content, I kind of realized, if I can start with my nightmare and think about a life that I don't want, which is, man, I don't want to be sick because I worked every day. I didn't see the people I care about. I was stressed out all the time and I had no agency for my life. Like that was just a nightmare life for me. So I started with that and then said, well, what's kind of the opposite of that? Well, I get to do the work I want to do. I feel like I have time to put in the relationships and the energy to put into those relationships. And 3, I feel like I can actually do something that has a positive impact in someone else's life, for people who really need it too. Maybe not people who, don't need it as much. I felt called at a period of my life to really just go out and help those who I felt like needed the most help. And so that's hopefully what this video is doing. Maybe you're seeing this at your best day, or maybe it's even your worst day. I'm not sure. From there, after you kind of work into what that dream life looks for you, you can go back and start to understand, what are my values? What are the things I value? When you dig into the word value, there's a lot of interesting meaning there. But even if you just go back and start by saying, okay, here's the things that I value, here's how I like to spend my time, my energy, make sure you do that. But remember what the heading of this section is get honest, right? So have honest values that you actually have and you actually practice. I know when I did it for the first time, I created like my dream life scenario, but I realized those things were not even on my radar of what I was actually doing. It was like telling someone, oh, yeah, I love to hike, when in reality, you haven't gone on a hike in 2 years, you know? So that was a good help for me. But reset protocol, great place to start. Next, I want to move into the financial rebuild for people. And this is really helpful because I think, from my personal story, finances are very stressful. And there's a lot of feeling of lack around finance. There's a lot of confusion around finances. And having safety, when we think about the hierarchy of needs, having safety when it comes to finances is incredibly important. So I cannot promote that enough. Why starting with like financial rebuilding sometimes is even more important than the reset protocol. If you're someone who's got all those figured out, but you have terrible financial habits, maybe you should start here. So the first thing I'm suggesting is identify how much you need to live. And so for you, that might be $1,000 a month. That might be $10,000 a month, depending on how many people are counting on you, what kind of lifestyle you're living. And that's something that only you can figure out, but really spend some time and understand, if I was to go through a period where I just needed the money that I need to live, to eat, to sleep, to do a few fun things, what does that actually look like for you? So start with that number. And it's okay. It's okay if it's really small. It's okay if it's a little bit bigger, because you'll kind of start to understand what the reasoning behind that number is too, which is cool. The second thing I'm suggesting is that if you have the ability to do this, right, reduce your schedule at work or find more work if you had to, if you're not making enough. And it could be the same job you're doing or a different job, to hit your break even for this kind of detox period. And what I mean by that is that most of the time, people will throw themselves into work. And when you're in that level of awareness and you're just head down in the work, it can be very hard to understand what your body and what your heart and what your soul is telling you. And so, if you can work for a while and have enough money coming in to support you while you work on the reset protocol and all these other things, I really think it will benefit you. And this is something I preach a lot to people in my own life who are really, you know, integrated into their job. I just feel like sometimes it's really nice to get that bird's eye view and a different perspective. And sometimes taking a step back from your work will allow you to do that. So the third thing in this, in classic theme, is get honest. And so this is kind of a 4-part thing that I do with a lot of my clients when I do financial wellness coaching and help, just because that's a really big personal interest of mine. I love financial literacy. I like telling people about it because I've had so many challenging experiences with finance myself. So this 4-step approach is pretty simple. One, start with a personal balance sheet. And all that is that as of today, what's everything that I own? Do I have cash in my wallet? Do I have cash in a bank account? Do I have a retirement account? Do I have a car that I've fully paid off, or maybe grandma gave me or something? What do you own? Take that on one side, write it all down as of today, what the balances are, and then compare that to what do I owe, or what do I need to pay back? Do I have credit card debt? Have I borrowed money from someone who I care about? Do I have a car loan? Do I have a house loan? Do I have medical bills? Do I have school debt? Like, what are things that you might have in your life that you have to pay back? And then, you can compare what you own to what you owe. And if you have more, great. You have a net wealth. But if you have a negative number, you owe more than you have, then you're in a position where you actually are upside down in your wealth. And it's just really good, like I said, to get honest. It's okay if you're in that position. Many of us are in the position where we actually owe more than what we have. But the beautiful thing is there's always a path forward if you're willing to follow those three things, which is, can you be consistent? Can you believe and invest in yourself? And can you unleash your why? I'm telling you, you can get out of whatever debt you're in. I promise you. I've seen it. I've seen crazy amounts of debt that people have gotten themselves out to because they followed those three things. So the third part of this has to do with setting one achievable goal. One of my favorite books of all time is Atomic Habits by James Clear, an amazing book. And in this book, he talks about how, the classic New Year's resolution, I'm going to go back to the gym. I'm going to start paying down my debts. I'm going to call my mom more. I'm going to, learn Tai Chi. I'm going to learn Hindi. I'm going to do all these different things. But the reality is that when you stack too many new goals for yourself, the odds of you achieving them go down to almost zero because it's just too hard. So when it comes to financial rebuilding, I would encourage you to set just one goal for yourself. And it can be something crazy or it can be something super small, but just set one and then focus on that one goal, and you'll be amazed how all the other things kind of fall into place by focusing on one goal. I'll talk about that more in a bit too. The last thing I'll get into here too is all about creating an emergency fund. Now, this is a concept I was put on to by Dave Ramsey. I think I have one of his classics too here. I found this in a little free library by my house. This is the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. Now, I think Dave catches a lot of flack in some circles. A lot of people hate on kind of what he does. I really appreciate his messaging because it does seem to me like he's coming from a place of the heart and he wants people to get out of debt, which I really appreciate. I don't agree with the methodology on everything he does, but I think he has incredible wisdom and has helped a ton of people in his time. And this idea of creating an emergency fund is really helpful. He talks about the baby fund, which I think is $1,000. I was in, a couple years ago, so it might need to be a little more, but the idea stays the same. If you can build up a certain amount of money in a bank account, in your wallet, somewhere that you have that is there, that is going to unlock so much safety in you, as crazy as it sounds, even though it's just $1,000 and you might be thousands of dollars in debt. Just having money set aside for an emergency does amazing things on your ability to sleep better at night, eat better food because you're not so stressed, and move your body. So just even starting with that emergency fund is a great place to do that. There's a lot more we could go into financial rebuilding, but I think that's kind of the big concepts I want to cover for now. The last thing I want to talk about is business strategy. So these are some things that have really helped me when it comes to really having fun and like success in my business. Now, when I say success, I'm not pulling in crazy amounts of money. I am making money, which is amazing. I'm so happy to be making money, to get paid to do what I do. And through that, like, that is a great reflection for me that I'm actually helping people, right? Because if I wasn't helping, no one would be paying me money in the first place. Like, I wouldn't be giving them any value. They wouldn't be paying me anything. So some of these business strategies, really all of them, are things that have helped me to do better work and more like fun and meaningful and great work for myself and for my clients. And so some of these things I just want to share with you. A lot of this content comes from someone like Alex Hormozy, who you can watch on YouTube. I'm sure you've seen him. At first I thought, like, who's this guy with the nose tape and the hat? What's he trying to sell me? And then I really started to watch a lot of his content and began to understand that he is a great dude, I believe, deep down, and just wants to help so many people and has put in a ton of hard work to get to where he's at and just has a desire to share, which is so cool. And it inspired me to want to share more too. So thank you, Alex. the 7 points I kind of want to hit on for business strategy, it all starts with defining your why. Now, this was a concept actually that I got put onto by one of the other resources I'm going to talk about in a bit from this company called Freedom Builders, their founder, Mike Gonzalez. He gave a talk for a group that I'm in that completely blew my mind about why the power of your message and your why is so important. I cannot recommend him enough. I'll talk about him a little bit at the end. But when you understand your why and your message behind things, you become so much more potent as a person, and your ability to help others just skyrockets, man. It is so cool. You can see this especially in someone like a Tony Robbins. He is able to get people so excited and so fired up because he is so in tune with his own why that he gets other people excited about that mission and that journey that he's on. So understanding your why is a great place to start, because the world does not need another Amazon. The world does not need another Baker Tilly. What the world does need is the one of you, right? They need that one version of you that can go out there and give your all to yourself, to your family, to the world. So defining your why is huge. Second up comes with crafting your message. Odds are, like right now, no one's watching this video on this live stream. Nobody, right? Having a message that is clear and concise allows you to cut through the multitude of noise right now. There's just so much content going out 24/7, whether it's on your phone, computer, things you see on the street, on the TV, or here. There's just an overwhelm of information right now. And the best way to get your why across is to have a clear and concise why that cuts through all that noise, in my opinion. So spending time to really craft your message is going to be huge. Most people would say like, hey, start on sales. That's where you got to start, number one. I think there's some wisdom to that, but you will have so much more success if you just start with understanding in the first place, like, why are you even doing this? And what's the message you're bringing across to people? As Mike Gonzalez likes to say, it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel that they really remember, which I completely agree. So the third point I want to go over is early on in your business, I would encourage you to take work for pretty cheap. Do not devalue yourself, and do not, do something completely for free, in my opinion. I mean, you could in certain instances, but you do want to value your time as well. So finding that balance of like, how can I help someone, but also recognize, yeah, they're probably taking a risk on me, especially if I'm doing something completely new. In that case, you probably want to lower your fee or what you're charging for someone. But there is something to be said about going out and helping someone for virtually free or low cost to really learn, right? And there's so much benefit there, because not only do you get benefit as the person who's learning the skills and understanding what you need to do for someone, but that person probably gets benefit too, because they get someone who's really on this process of rebuilding their life. And in my opinion, when you're around those kinds of people, you can feel the energy and like the fire of their internal log that's just ripping with fire. And it makes you want to get on fire too, in a good way. So going out and just like charging very little or basically nothing for some of your initial services is a great way to just start to see like, hey, is this business I'm trying to do, or this product I'm trying to sell, or this service I'm trying to offer, what could be better about it? What does my market actually want for it? And then from there, you can go back to number two, which is, okay, I learned from people who I like to do, in my instance, right? I want to give the most incredible accounting and finance and tax services to people so that I can actually help them live their dream life. For me, I went out, found some amazing clients, was like, hey, I'll do everything for you. You pay me dirt cheap fees and we'll take over together. And through that, I was able to understand what really matters for people. Not what I think, like what my accountant brain thinks matters to them. It's really, what does a business owner actually care about, and what's the language that they speak? So going back to step two to refine your message was super helpful for me. The fifth thing I'm going to focus on here is kind of in line with what Hormozy says about, narrowing down your focus. I know at first I was incredibly reluctant to to niching down because I thought like that's the opposite of what I want to do. I want to be an artist. I want to go where my heart calls me and help people the way I want to help them and do whatever the job requires. And that's a beautiful thing for sure, but it is very hard to scale that, especially when you're in the game of your own time. You know, I was serving, I think, 10 clients when I was early on in my business, all business owners, and I was doing such a wide variety of things for them that it felt like, I had to learn something new every hour of the day, which was great for my personal learning. And I'm so glad that that's the path I started on. But it will not be a sustainable path for me going forward if I want to amplify my message and have the impact I want to have in the world. So for me, I recognized that focusing on one thing is going to allow me to do that better than anyone else. So I would encourage you, not necessarily pick one focus and pigeonhole yourself right off the bat, but be willing to understand, how can I narrow my focus, as Hormozy would say, how can I get that magnifying glass at the right level so that it has that perfect beam and can light flame to a fire. The sixth thing, I'm a big fan of doing things lean, and what that really means is that it's not falling into shiny object syndrome like so many of us do. I know when I first started my business, I watched so many YouTube videos on what software I should get, what kind of tools do I need? Do I need to be marketing things, all these different things. And it would have been so easy to go out and spend a ton of money on things that honestly don't matter at the beginning. Like your why and message and the ability to sell, if you can understand those three things, virtually that's all free, to do that. And you will have more success than 90% of the other people running their business who just went out and bought what they saw on YouTube told them to buy. Especially, I see this so often with accountants. Having that ability to start lean and be like, what is the minimum that I need to get me going, will allow you to then understand the tools that you actually need to serve the people you want to serve or to sell to the people you want to sell to. I think I don't have the copy here. I think it's actually upstairs, but I have here it is. I have another good book called The Lean Startup by a guy named Eric Ries. It's a great book as well. Helped me a lot. A lot of concepts I already knew. There's also a guy on YouTube. I don't remember his name, but something along the lines of like 5-second or 10-second lean. And his videos are awesome too. But the whole concept behind lean is, how can I do things better? How can I be more efficient? And how can I deliver service or products in a way that has an impact on people without having so much bottleneck or things that slow down that process. So I'm a big fan of lean. Once you really understand and narrow down the focus and have something lean, then you can put money behind it and scale it once it's healthy, once the system's ready for that. You don't want to throw a bunch of money in a bunch of systems and things behind a bad offer or a bad product or a bad service, because then you're just going to amplify something that's bad. And the last thing with this on the business strategy is something I actually was put onto by one of my clients who's super smart. And originally, I always thought people just needed 3 months runway of cash, but he was a big fan of hitting 6 months runway. And his whole point was like, oh, the longest recession in history lasted less than 6 months. So if you have 6 months of cash, you could weather any storm. And I was like, there's some wisdom to that belief system there. And so if you could get to a point, where you have 6 months of expenses built up in your business, God, you could do anything. You could take any risk. You could go after it because you know that you have enough to kind of gamble now. And I do want to say, when it comes to like gambling and risk in business, there's so much to go into there. But one thing I want to share that my personal coach, Jason Picard, likes to talk about from one of his mentors is that you want to be like the casino. And what I mean by that is that you want to understand, let's say you're playing roulette and you walk into a casino and the roulette table has 2 greens and then it has the rest of the squares as either red or black. Well, the casino has a 52% chance of winning every time, if to your 48% chance of winning. So if you can take that risk and take that gamble in an area where you have 52% chances of winning and the odds are stacked in your favor, and then you add on consistency to that, you will outwin if you just continue to do that. And so understand risks, understand where to put your money, but always be smart that, I don't want to go play a game that I have no idea about, right? Like that's why I don't play Baccarat at the casino. I don't even go to the casino, but I would never sit down and play that game. It sounds easy, right? Oh, it's 50-50 odds. But if you don't understand it, why throw money at it? So really understand in your life, where can you be a master and go deep on these things and have a better chance of return. So what I lastly want to finish with is going into some of the coaches that have helped me, especially on YouTube. There's tons of free content from Paul, from Dave, from Alex. There's so much resources you can get out of those three people alone. I will say, for me, in going back to investing in myself, I have started to pay for a coach and a community for going almost on a full year now. And it has been one of the single best investments I have ever made in myself, just because it's helped me in more ways than I can even, like, I'll make another 30-minute video on how much I've gotten out of that course. And that's something called the Abundance Archetype, put on by an amazing man, Jason Picard. I cannot recommend enough, like even just learning this wonderful soul story, it will empower you to realize that you can have such a positive impact in the world if you take agency for your life and you take a long, honest look in the mirror and say, I can't do this anymore. I know that I'm made for something so much more. And so I love that community. I'm in it myself. He puts out amazing free resources on his Instagram page. But I would highly, highly recommend looking into the Abundance Archetype or an equivalent coach for yourself. The last person I want to talk about is Freedom Builders. So I already mentioned Mike Gonzalez before, but he is someone who, if you're having difficulty with your why or crafting your message, he's made an amazing course that goes so deep and will open your eyes to the importance of messaging, the psychology behind marketing, and how to really craft your personal story. And he's someone who I'm newer to working with, but I cannot express how much value I've gotten just from such a quick amount of time from learning from him. And he has great resources for free online as well. So that could be a great place to start. But yeah, that kind of concludes everything I wanted to talk about. Again, these ideas are not my own. I just wanted to share some things that I've implemented in my own life for the last couple of years, as well as hopefully just, maybe give someone the opportunity to take 1% more chance of betting on themselves. And so if that did help, I'm really happy. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and best of luck out there. Remember, always lead with love and not fear. And yeah, love you. End this thing.